All right, welcome back to our studio. My name's Mark, or Mookie, if you will, from 88.5 The SoCal Sound. We are listener-supported public radio here in Los Angeles and Orange County. If you're not a subscribing member, maybe sign up today at thesocalsound.org. We got a great band here. Bridget Calls Me Baby here in our studio, so we'll get into a song right off the bat, and we'll talk to the guys in just a matter of moments. And again, this is 88.5 The SoCal Sound. There you go. The song was called Too Easy. It's brand new from Bridget Calls Me Baby. I got the new record right here. The Future is Our Way Out right here. It's kind of an advanced copy because as we tape this segment today, it's really days before the release of the new album. Devin and Wes, how are things generally?
You want to start that one?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, just seeing that in front of us has been a long time coming, so.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Very proud of our work on that.
Now, there was a lot of people are new to the game, and I told you off the air, you guys are quite possibly one of the buzziest bands of this year, and it's got to feel pretty good. I hope you guys are feeling just generally pretty good about all the success,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, like you say, we've seen the smaller stages and some of the bigger stages now, and it's been quite rewarding to see that the vision you have from the beginning can become, reality, and it's been more and more that way as time's gone on.
So grinding it out back in the day, I imagine you played, the smallest of, dive bars and clubs and back home in Chicago, and to think, you guys got Lollapalooza coming real soon, and shows in Southern California at the Wiltern and Humphreys. I mean, it's remarkable, really, so we're happy to be part of the success, and our listeners are familiar with Impressively Average, Eddie My Love, and We Were Never Alive, and I feel like we're already going pretty deep on the new album, which is crazy. There was an EP that came out in 2023, right? And some of these tracks are going to end up on the full length, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sort of repurposed?
A few of them, yeah. I think maybe all of them, actually.
Yeah, I think all of them.
At this point, yeah. But yeah, half of the, nearly half the record, maybe a little bit more, was produced by Dave Cobb, and we then self-produced a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the EP was pretty much entirely Dave, so yeah.
I do have some Dave Cobb questions. We'll get to it, of course. But again, the band, now you're originally from Texas, right?
Yeah.
And what was the reason for moving out to Chicago in the first place?
I had some friends in Chicago that I knew online. I hadn't really met them. And I wanted to visit Chicago to sort of see what it was all about and hang out with them. And so I did. And honestly, the band exists because of the organic nature of my friend introducing me to their friends, and their friends introducing me to their friends, and eventually you go through enough people and you find the right ones that have the same mentality, and a band exists, and that's almost exactly how it went.
Mm-hmm. So you guys formed more or less, I think I was reading something like 2016. Does that sound about right?
Well, that's when I first went to Chicago.
Right.
This band has only existed for, 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, incredible.
I went to Chicago in 2016, and that was the first time I had visited, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the beginnings of, I wouldn't say this band, but that was the beginnings of taking music seriously
Right.
for me.
Right. Well, let's get into another song. I do have some more questions. We got Bridget Calls Me Baby here in studio, which is amazing. We Were Never Alive is a song, again, that our listeners might be familiar with. It's been said that Devin wrote the music, and possibly the lyrics came shortly thereafter. Could you give us a sort of storyteller's type of little bit of background on the subject matter here?
Well,
Sure.
tell them about how the music came.
Well, the music came about, we were in the car on the way back from Pennsylvania, I think, and it was just one of those days I hadn't slept well, and I forget who I was in the car with, but they kept going on about something, and I needed a minute to take some me time, so I put on some headphones and threw some things together. I sent them your way. I think you had lyrics written maybe that night.
Yeah,
It worked
definitely.
very quickly.
And that's how the best songs come, I think. Just it doesn't take much time, and that one definitely didn't.
And generally, I think you're touching on topics like we're only here living for a short period of time, so,
Actually, the title came from a phrase or a quote that I had heard someone say, and it was about something like, when everyone that knows you dies, and no one mentions your name anymore, it's almost as if you were never alive. And that's sort of where the idea came from. This is great conversation.
That's heavy subject matter.
I
Let's
don't know
get
what time this is airing, but
Whoa.
hopefully maybe like 2 a.m. or something, when people are trying to get, introspective.
Well, let's get into it right now. We got the band here. We Were Never Alive. It is a great live version of the song Bridget Calls Me Baby on the SoCal Sound.
Have you ever felt you were dreaming and life was just
So there you go. We Were Never Alive, a great live version from Bridget Calls Me Baby. Would I be correct in saying Bridget or Brigitte?
Depends who you are.
It's an honest question.
Yeah, it depends who you are, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm from Texas, so I say Bridget.
Yeah.
Some people say Brigitte. I think Brigitte sounds better, but it's not how I say it.
It sounds pretty good. We work with a Brigitte who goes by Jet as a nickname. I asked you just now off the air, an affinity for radio. Do you guys consume radio these days, or?
I used to listen to Howard Stern a little bit when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess 2005, 2006-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why my parents let me listen to it, but I did.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
It seems like stations around the country, like-minded stations, kind of like the SoCal Sound, they've really embraced you, which is great. And on this promo run, you probably have been stopping by some radio stations around the country, which I think is very cool. How are you generally consuming music? Probably streaming? You guys vinyl collectors at all?
I love the playlists, so it's what turns me on to new stuff, and there's a lot of great new music. I think we're in a pretty much the best time for it because anything can find its audience because of playlists and radio and every kind of source that we have to reach the people we're meant to reach. So definitely consuming as much music as I can.
Yeah. How do you feel when people compare you to other artists and bands and musicians of the past? You hear the same names come up when talking about your band sometimes. I hear Morrissey, I hear, Roy Orbison. How does that make you?
It depends who they are, those are great. I think I love great singers, so if someone compares me to another great singer, that doesn't bother me.
Right.
We've gotten everything from, like you say, Morrissey to The Strokes or Interpol, and like these are good bands, so that doesn't bother me.
All right. Well, it's been said, or it's been written, that your grandparents may have turned you on to Roy Orbison. Your parents may have turned you on to bands like The Cars, and your friends turning you on to bands like Radiohead and The Strokes. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be around people who. There's just a variety of people. I mean, my brothers were really into hip hop, and like, it was just everything at once. And I, thankfully, had an open mind, and in the middle of all of that, found myself. And to me, I just like, if it's genuine, at the very least, I can respect it. You know, as long as it's genuine. If it's real, I can't, scoff at something.
Right. In my formative years, I was definitely a hip hop guy.
Yeah.
And people around here, they're surprised because I'm over here at like a rock station, But
People are surprised when I say that as well.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I had that base, to be quite honest with you. And
some of the most genuine music, I mean, like KRS-One and Ice Cube, I mean, stuff like that was like,
sure.
I just loved the attitude and the authenticity and voices, once again, It's not necessarily a conventional singing voice, but it is absolutely just as charismatic as Sinatra, to me.
When I saw you in Philadelphia at the Non-Convention, which was a great performance, by the way, and it was a room full of radio people, and oftentimes it's not an easy room to please, but the feedback after the show was really amazing. I was on a panel and somebody asked me the Desert Island Disc question, and I was like, I don't know, Television, Marquee Moon, but in retrospect, I was thinking about it, I'd be like, probably Tupac, All Eyes on Me, or something like that, to be quite honest with you.
You gotta get one of those in there. You get one hip-hop record in there.
Yeah.
At least.
Now that's a good question for you, the Desert Island Disc, since we're on the topic.
It's a hard question.
It's impossible.
Well, I've got a few, I think. How many do I get?
Hey, give us a couple.
Couple?
What's on your short list?
The 1975's first album would be one. I think it's incredible. I think Black Celebration, the Depeche Mode album. That would be a couple. Those are the two that come off the top of my head. I know there's more. Maybe Songs from the Big Chair. Or
I was going to say that one.
were you?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
That's on my list.
yeah. So we only one of us can have it.
Well, yeah.
The Dave Cobb connection. You were working on some Elvis Presley inspired material, and that's how you
I was working on the
met
Baz
Dave Cobb?
Luhrmann Elvis movie.
Right. In what capacity?
They had hired me to work on the music, and that's how I met Dave.
And were you making original music for film?
No, it was they had to find a way to, because some of the material they were using for that movie is pretty old. They couldn't really find a way for Austin to like lip sync to Elvis's early stuff, so they were trying to find someone who could go in there and assist in any way. And
Right.
ultimately, my role is ambiguous to me. I get checks, and that's all I care about.
Lovely. Love that, for doing something that you love, working on music.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's great. What else would you guys be doing if it wasn't for this music thing, you think?
I would probably be on my mom's couch forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. I'm barely employable if it wasn't for the radio business.
There's no
at this
plan B.
point.
Yeah.
There's no plan.
I know.
I firmly believe that if there is a plan B, you're going to do it. So
Yeah.
just,
I mean, it's already setting yourself up for
you
that.
got to get rid of the plan B.
But my plan B is freeloading.
Yeah.
You're all in on this thing,
Mhm.
which is amazing. We're going to get into another song, I think, Pink Palace, which is new to us and sort of inspired by Hollywood scandals.
Yeah.
If I,
Yeah.
Is there a bit of a background on that one?
Yeah.
Shed some light.
There was a book that my grandma had, and it was called Hollywood Babylon, and it was just like pretty macabre book about like different Hollywood, like you say, scandals and like deaths and things like that. And there was one image of Jane Mansfield, and it was pretty jarring to see as a kid and stuck with me. And as I got older, when I discovered like the Misfits, they had a song called Hollywood Babylon that was about the book, and I thought, well, I've got a story to tell about that book and my experience with it, and the song was trying to marry something really dark with something that doesn't sound dark at all musically, and that's how that was born.
So we're going to get into it. Pink Palace from Bridget Calls Me Baby. BridgetCallsMeBaby.com is the website. The merch is up on there. You can subscribe to the newsletter. It's really great to meet you guys after, spending so much time with your music the past several months, and again, whenever you sweep through SoCal, open door policy, as we say, feel free to come and, visit us, or maybe we'll work on another thing in the future together.
Love that. Thanks
Awesome.
for having us.
Yeah, congrats on everything. Again, Bridget Calls Me Baby on the SoCal Sound.
Never mind the feeling that you get when you think of how she died. It's easy, just believe me when I look at you and all which that implies. And every day I'll be alright if I wake up next to you. And it's true, so true. Oh, it's true, so true. You know that I can't stop loving you, I always do. And you know that I can't stop loving you, I always do. Decapitation and masturbation don't go hand in hand. Few things are sadder than the tragic death of a woman and her man. And every day I'll be just fine if I wake up next